Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Speak Podcast, Special People Encouraging a Kid. This is your girl, Barisha, better known for Bree, on this podcast. Well, we're here today and we're going to be discussing a lot of things. We have a special guest with us, but before we go into that, you know what SPEAK stands for. It is Special People Encouraging a Kid, a child, a youth that had experienced bullying or some type of trauma, or even thinking of suicidal thoughts or ideations, considerations, or even attempts. We're here to encourage you. Why? Because we want you to live and to live again. So our special guest, I am so honored to have this young man named Marcus Black in the house with us. Who is Marcus Black? The world knows Marcus Black. You need to get to know Marcus Black. Marcus, he's a genuine man. Let me just start with that. I met Marcus not even long ago, and the first connection or the first meeting, we connected like just from the hip. And it was like from heart to heart. And since that moment, it's been nonstop. And I am so glad that he is the very first guest since we have started back with this podcast. So who is Marcus, you may ask? Marcus is the host of Vitalize Podcast. If you haven't heard of it, look for it. You will be blessed. Marcus also is the 2025 nominee for Cheer Choice Awards. Wow, Marcus, that is big, and congratulations to you, brother. Congratulations to you. Marcus also, he has a morning motivation every morning where you can join and just receive motivation. And so today he's coming with us. He's joining the Speak Podcast to motivate you, to encourage you and children. We want you to go through this week being encouraged and to know that you can live and to live again. So welcome to the podcast, Marcus.
Hey, yo, what up, family? Listen, I'm so incredibly excited, elated, ecstatic, all the other fancy words that start with E to let you know I'm happy to be in your presence today. Yes. What up, though? Let's get it. So, Marcus, you know that this podcast is really catered to our youth, our children, and we're wanting them to live. You know, there's so much going on in the world, and I mean, children, they need a buffer. They need somebody who they can hear from. They can, you know, just receive that motivation and that encouragement to just keep living. So talk about your story, some of the things that you may have been through, how you overcome it, and what are some practical tools that you use even today. Have you been, experienced trauma? Have you been bullied? Have you even had thoughts of suicide? But you know what? You don't even have to talk about all that today. We can always pick it up, another time. But I just want you to have the floor, have this time to just really share with our kids. Absolutely. I appreciate you, first of all, and I thank you for your heart to talk about such pivotal topics and to talk about you, who is of the utmost importance. Even when you don't feel like it, it's incredible to have people who care. Mm-hmm. People who care about you more than you even know to care for yourself is vital to you being successful. So shout out to you for doing this, for putting it together, for creating such a powerful, impactful space and initiative that just builds up our future, because the young people are our future, right? So you talk about me and being young, I always tell people I lived through hell on earth. You talk about trauma and adversity, that was my story. So being your age at an early age in my home, already was born in Memphis, raised in Mississippi. So, that's where we at, Your favorite rappers talk about they got it out the mud. They don't even know what that means. Most of them came from the burbs. Like, we got out the literal mud, literally. And as a result of that, there was a lot going on. It's also the poorest state in the union, so there's already poverty. And then having a parent struggle with addictions. There was alcohol addiction, gambling addiction, and that caused my home life to be chaotic. Angry, rageous, fits, lights off, no food in the house. I mean, just like a struggle, a ridiculous struggle. And we didn't have much. We didn't have bread like that. So, just having to make do. And what that's like, going to school with kids, and they got a lot to say, and they have a lot of things. They talk about bullying. I mean, I always talked about for the things that I had or didn't have, clothes you wear. And it's like you're being held accountable as kids for things you have no control over. You don't control what kind of money comes in your house, income, what clothes you have the ability to put on. And then y'all come out here and then you want to talk negatively about somebody else having no idea what they got going on at the house. You don't know what those classmates or peers are going home to. And I know because I had this going on at home. It got so bad that we wound up losing our home because of gambling. We had nowhere to go. So we moved a family in with my aunt in a 2-bedroom house. She already got 3 kids living there and a grandkid. And then you talking 3 more in 2 bedrooms. And so now you got 1 bedroom with 6 people, some on the floor, some on the bed, falling off the bed. Just insane, crazy.
You taking me back to my childhood.
And we living like this.
Yeah.
And then going to school and supposed to now all of a sudden act like I care about this test. I can't think about this test. I'm in survival mode. And then to have to deal with all of this and navigating so much pain and trauma at the home front, and to go in here and to have other kids that got so much to say and they want to laugh and just make life horrible. And many of you resonate, you know what I'm talking about. And so that was the condition that birthed me, and it was a difficult condition, and I had many down days and many sad days and many tear-filled days, and just did the best I could to survive. And the best thing I did for myself was to have hope, right? When you lose hope, then you're in a dangerous place. Maybe some of y'all been in a dangerous place recently, and you feel like hope is lost. But I want you to know hope is never lost. What I can promise you is that it gets greater later. I promise you that. What I cannot promise you or tell you is how or when. I don't have any say-so in that. But what I can promise you is if you just fight to stay another day, it will get greater later. That is a fact. That is a promise. I could not have dreamed all the cool stuff that she said about me, what I'm doing, all the things that, that's wild. To even think that, to go from where I was to be where I am, and to that's even a reality. But it's a result of just not giving up, not throwing in the towel. I got a dear friend. She's another huge mental health advocate, and she always talks about this, like throwing in the towel, but God throwing it back.
Come on.
She's like, I threw in the towel, but God threw it back. And I've never forgotten that imagery, because it's like when you want to quit, it's like you got too much to fight for. You don't even realize it at this age. Like, what do I got to fight for? My house is a mess. My life is a mess. My parents are a mess. My school is a mess. Everything is a mess. And it's like, what am I fighting for? To live for what? And then because there's a future that you can't even see.
Let me put a pin there, because you're saying, your friend, what your friend told you, they wanted to throw in the towel and God just, threw it back. There's a scripture that talks about casting all your cares upon him because he cares for you. When I think of that, and when you think about casting, it's literally throwing. Like when you're throwing something, and it's throwing with a force. And so when you're throwing something with a force, you're not expecting it to come back. But how often do we do that? And so I remember in one of my previous episodes, I was talking about when my mom told me I had so much going on and just felt guilty and shame about, the sins and all the mess that I was in. And it was just weighing me down. And my mom told me to pull out a piece of paper and a blank sheet of paper and get a pencil and just scribble on that. And then she says, erase it. And when you erase it, it's like a blank sheet of paper. And that's what God does. So I love it that you're telling, the children about hope, because when you do have hope, you're hoping to survive. You're hoping to not survive, but to thrive.
Yeah.
You know?
For me, I remember vividly sitting in that house and thinking, like, I don't know what it is, but this ain't it. So I used to dream about what it could be, like what life could be like. I used to dream about what it would look like to have a healthy family. I used to dream about what it would look like to be in a different environment where there was peace in my home and not chaos. I used to dream about what it would look like to not worry about where your next meal was coming from. I used to dream about, and whenever I would be in that space and it was yelling and all of this rage and all of this stuff in the house, I would just escape in my imagination, and I had hope. And what's crazy is much of what I do in the world, I used to go to other cities and I used to go to other countries and I used to do this in my brain and imagine what that would be like. And now I'm actually doing that.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually going to other cities and other countries and doing all of these things. Yeah. And people fund my life. They pay me to do that, to go see the world and travel and have all these experiences. And that is a direct result of not losing hope when it was dark.
And because you can.
Ugh, that part.
Because you can. Yeah. Wow. Man, that's good. That's good. Thinking about even more so of your childhood. You talked a little bit how you grew up in a home and so many people, and it just made me think about my childhood too. How, my mom, when separating from my dad, and my grandmother had purchased a home that was across the street from where she lived. But that home, whenever going to see grandmother, that home was the home known for prostitutes and drug dealers. But my grandmother was needing, or so much loving her daughter, that she wanted her to be safe. And she purchased that home, and of course, it was torn down or just, refinished in the inside, but it wasn't enough for 3 people living in the home. I had to share the room with my mom, sleep on a mattress on the floor, and my mom in her bedroom, and, the rats and all the things. So I am with you, and I thank God for what it is today. That home has been remodeled so many different times and still need work, but my mom had a home for her children, to survive. So surviving is the key. And you move from surviving to now thriving. And what you're doing now is thriving because you can, because you want to live, you wanted to live. So have you had any, just being in that type of condition, have you ever thought about like taking your life or even thoughts of suicide?
That was never an option for me. And so it was never, like, ideation wasn't something that I ever had. And, I know that that's really tough, and I know a lot of people struggle with that, I think the worst, this is slightly different but related. I used to wish something bad would happen to me. Like, I didn't want to do it to myself, but I would wish something bad would happen to me so that the people who hurt me would realize. So it's like, maybe then they'll see if something really bad happens and they won't treat me as bad, or they won't say the things they say. So that was probably as bad as it got for me. I never had the thought of me actually harming myself, because even if I didn't feel like I was worth much or valuable, I felt like I was worth more than that. And, and I realized how valuable life is and how worth fighting for it is, but it's crazy because be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah.
You just might get it.
You just might get it.
And, coming from 2004, we was in a battle of the bands at the Liberty Bowl. And on the way home, and this is in Memphis, Tennessee, if y'all listening wherever you are, we're in Memphis, and I was headed back to Mississippi down the highway, and we were going down I-55, and something really bad happened, exactly what I wished for. And we had a tire blowout. We didn't know that at the time. I just heard an explosion. I was in the car, and I was falling asleep. I was in the passenger seat. It was all good. And I heard this loud explosion, this boom that startled me. And I don't know what that was. So I'm like, did we hit something? I'm looking at my friend that's driving, like, what just happened? He's like, I don't know what just happened, but the car starts jumping up and down. Then it starts shaking uncontrollably. He starts screaming, and we fly off the highway, like right by a big bridge down deep into the median. And I remember like my friend yelling, we finna die, we finna die, we finna die. And I remember trees smacking me in the face. The glass burst, glass was smacking me in the face. Like my head was being tossed to and fro. And I remember thinking like, this is the end, this is it. And the car flips around in the air. We knocked down like 6 trees before we hit a massive tree, and then boom, and just crushed the car into a ball of metal.
Wow.
And I sat in that car afraid to open my eyes because I was scared of what I was going to see, because I felt like, man, my greatest fear was about to come to pass, which is all that stuff I dreamed about, all that stuff I fantasized about, the chances of the life that I heard about, you know, the thriving that I never got to experience. I felt like you are now about to die without having ever lived. And that's where I was. And, you know, that was a difficult place to be. Spoiler alert, though, I'm still here. So
You're still here.
Yeah. God
And we're so thankful that you are. Wow. And one thing that I did mention, we're both from Memphis, Tennessee. Go Memphis. Love my town. Love my hometown. So keep dreaming, you know. And something I was thinking about as you were saying how you never thought to just do harm to yourself, but you were wanting something to happen. And I'm thinking about like the default setting that we have. And I'm thinking how the default setting happens because of the environment you're in.
Yeah.
And it's a setting because it's all what you see, right? And I'm thinking about how our children who's been traumatized, I keep saying the word trauma, it's a new word, look it up. No, who's been traumatized and who's been bullied or even experiencing suicidal ideations or considerations or, even tried to kill themselves. It's because of a default setting that they're only seeing where they've been. They're only seeing what happened to them. And that default setting can just be the setting that they go to for when whatever happens. That negative thinking, the negative thought, the first thing that comes to mind is from what you've experienced. And that's what you believe.
I often say, like, many people, and you heard this before, I didn't make this up, but it really resonated with me, can't see the beauty of the forest because the trees are blocking their view.
Yeah.
So, I've been to several forests around the world, and, when you're out and you're looking in, it's like breathtaking. It's like, wow, you can see the beauty of the entire forest and the waterfalls, and you see all this good stuff. But when you're in it, not everything in it is beautiful, even though overall it's beautiful. So, like, there's some things in that can kill you in the forest. There's some things that can cause you great pain if you get bit by this or that. And so when you're in it, it's hard sometimes to see past the part you're in. Yeah. But if you get past the part you're in and navigate, then you can see the beauty and learn to appreciate it. And that's how life is as well. It's like you said, that default setting as a result of my environment, as a result of my experiences, as a result of my pain, my trauma, my bullying causes me to see only pain, trauma, and bullying. But you can't see hope, love, life, joy that's on the other side of that pain that's coming if you keep pressing on.
Yes, exactly. And if you don't have faith, seeing what you don't see, believing for what you want to see and to see it the way that you want to see it, that's faith. You can only, if you're only seeing what you see and that's all you see and you respond to what you see, then you only do and only receive what you see.
That's a fact. Nah, that's a pivotal piece of the puzzle. I started designing the life that I so desired to live when I was sitting in those adverse experiences. But I didn't start living the life I desired to live until I started to believe that that could be my reality. I designed it and I dreamed it long years before, but I didn't believe it was possible. Not for me, not from where I come from.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen for me. That's for other people. But when I started to believe that it could be possible, that's where faith comes in.
Mm-hmm.
That's when things started to shift.
Mm-hmm.
And now you see the result of that. So,
Man, you're talking good, and I get excited just talking about faith. I'm a woman of faith, and that's where I am today. Not that I've always been there, always been, in church. That's my foundation. But to be where I am today, have not always been, and it's just really happened recently. And what I have learned is how God is in everything. For those of you who are, believers, and for those who are unbelievers, we're not pushing our faith or anything on you, but, there is God. There is Jesus, all of that. And when I was in that space, just even last year, I seen more of God. And it just makes me think how when we're in our lowest, when we're in our dark, in the forest, that's when we can hear more, we can believe more,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to go so deep into that, but if you have anything from that, say it.
Yeah, I think this is actually probably a good place to end today, because it's like we right where we need to be. You heard about some pain, you heard about some trauma, you heard about some hope, you heard about light on the other side, and now you're hearing about faith. And so I think it's a great place to leave them with what you're talking about, how that shifted for you, and that shift, how much better it's made life for you. But I always talk about this. When I tell my story, it's actually the last chapter of my book. I'm also a best-selling author. So in the last chapter of my book, I wrote a chapter called Anchored. And I start that chapter by talking about all the things I've been through, craziest stories, this, that, here, there, up, down, all around. And I often get asked, like, why are you so positive? It makes no sense. How are you so inspiring? How is your perspective so good when you've been through so much bad? And I say, it's because I have an anchor. I'm like, okay, what is that? What does that mean to me? Well, I was in Australia years ago, and that was cool.
Wow.
But they decided to take us outside of, in the harbor, there's an inlet. That's like the ocean, but it ain't the ocean. That's just what they let into the city.
Okay.
You can go outside of that, and then you in the ocean.
Okay.
We got on the boat and we went.
Picture.
So we got on the boat
Uh-huh.
and we went outside. We're sailing through the city. It's pretty, it's sweet, it's cool. And then it's like this little inlet where the water from the ocean comes in, and we get outside of that, and now it's just ocean. And when we was out there, things got real because the ship started going all the way side to side. It started going like literally, like I'm sitting sideways in this car. Like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, this boat.
Yeah.
That's how nervous I was. I'm talking about a car. They was looking at me. I'm holding on for dear life. They just up. The locals is like just chilling. I'm like, how are y'all chilling? Like, we about to die is what I'm thinking. And they're like, look at him. Haha, he's so afraid. I'm like, yes, I am. And it's like, you don't have to be afraid. It's like, what you mean? We about to flip over. They're like, nah, we're not going nowhere because we have an anchor. And I was like,
Wow.
and then this caused me to think, like, what is an anchor? And anchor is a mechanism that was built and connected to ships that in the event that the water get a little too rough, the storm get a little too tough, that thing is dropped into the water and it burrows down deep, and then it stabilizes the ship. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So they was like, well, I guess what hit me was, to have an anchor, the mistake that we make is to think that it shields you from the elements. The purpose of the anchor is not to shield you from the elements. The purpose of the anchor is to keep you from getting lost at sea.
Yeah. Yep.
That was a crazy revelation for me in my own heart, because I realized that in my life, the reason I can still smile and I'm still standing through everything I've been through is because I have an anchor.
Yes.
And the anchor that I have is Jesus, is Jesus Christ, and him stabilizing me. Now, the mistake that people make, even when building a relationship with Jesus, is thinking, well, I did that and I tried that and everything was still bad and it was still storm and it's still raining on me. I'm still struggling. The purpose of the anchor is not to shield you from the storms of life. They coming. That is a fact of life. Either way, but what the anchor does is gives you peace in the storm, to know that no matter how bad it gets out there, I'm never going to get lost in the sauce. I have safety. I have peace. I'm never going to get lost.
Yes.
In all the things happening around me. And on my worst days, even on my worst days, that's still, because bad days happen for everybody. Still, when I have bad days, my peace comes from knowing that I'm anchored and knowing if I don't got it, he got it. And if he got it, then I'm going to be all right. And if you're listening to the sound of my voice, he got it and you're going to be all right. You just got to choose to be anchored.
Man, wow. So I would say that is a practical tool that our kids, our children, our youth can take away, is to finding that anchor. And that anchor is Jesus Christ. What is your anchor? Let's just ask the question to you. What is your anchor? So
I'll tell you what it's not. It's not money, because that comes and goes. It's not your favorite influencers. It's not celebrities, because they could be here today, gone tomorrow. I always tell people, your anchor don't got to be my anchor, but you got to have one. And it can't be in the wrong thing. So you're going to figure out, and you need to anchor yourself so that you have stability in this life, and that'll be the beginning of your entire life changing.
So think about this week as you go throughout this week. What is your anchor? And think of an anchor that is unmovable, unshakable. That anchor that can just keep you grounded. So as we come to an end of this episode with Mr. Marcus Black, I'm so honored. I'm so honored that you've taken time to just be a part of this, that you believe in what I believe. So thank you for allowing me to just be connected to you. So, children, as you are ending this episode with us, we want you to think about there is a number that you can actually text, and that's the Suicide Prevention Hotline. If you're even contemplating any thoughts of suicide, we want you to live and to live again. We want you to speak up, speak out, and speak from within so that you can live and to live again. Thank you for joining this episode of Speak Special People Encouraging a Kid.